There is a spider on the wall right now. You have not seen it yet, but the moment you do, something happens. Your heart accelerates before you can think a single word. Your pupils dilate and your muscles pull back automatically. All of that fires before your conscious mind has formed a response. The spider is roughly the size of a coin. It has never hurt anyone in this room and cannot hurt you now. And yet your body is treating it like a direct threat to your life. Here is what makes that strange to think about. 1/3 of all women and 1/4 of all men fear spiders. There are roughly 45,000 known spider species in the world. The number that are genuinely dangerous to a healthy adult is fewer than 30. The fear is wildly, absurdly out of proportion to the actual danger. And that gap between the threat and the response is where the science gets interesting. Because your spider fear is not a malfunction and not a weakness. It is not something that needs to be fixed or explained away. It is a feature, and it has been running in your nervous system for a very long time. When you see a spider, the response does not start where you think it does. It does not start in the part of your brain that thinks or reasons. It starts in the amygdala, a small, almond-shaped structure buried deep in the brain. The amygdala functions as your threat detection alarm, processing sensory data at extraordinary speed. It can launch a full stress response before your rational mind has been consulted at all. Adrenaline floods your system, and your pupils dilate to take in more information. Your muscles tense and prepare to move you away from the threat. You are already in fight or flight before you have consciously registered what you are seeing. This is not a design flaw. It is a survival feature running exactly as intended. But why do spiders specifically have their own fast lane into that alarm system? To answer that, you have to go back roughly 100,000 years, back to the East African savanna where the earliest modern humans were emerging. There were no hospitals, no antivenom, no emergency services of any kind. A bite from a venomous spider in that environment was close to a death sentence. Researchers from Columbia University, including psychologist Joshua New, proposed something important. They suggested the human visual system retains dedicated pathways for detecting threats that recurred throughout evolutionary time. Spiders were one of those recurring threats across hundreds of thousands of years. The individuals whose nervous systems detected and avoided spiders fastest were the ones who survived. They passed those genes to the next generation, and the one after that. Over time, the alarm became part of the architecture of the human brain itself. The fear was not learned from a childhood experience or a scary movie. It was inherited, and it is sitting in your genome right now. The most compelling evidence for this came from the Max Planck Institute in Germany. Neuroscientist Stephanie Hoyle and her team ran an experiment with 48 infants just 6 months old. These babies had not seen horror films or heard a parent scream at a spider. They had absorbed no cultural messaging whatsoever about what is frightening. They were a completely clean slate with no learned associations yet. Using an infrared eye tracker to measure pupil dilation, the team showed the infants 2 types of images. One group of images showed spiders, the other showed flowers as a neutral comparison. When shown spiders, the infants' pupils dilated to an average of 0.14 millimeters. When shown flowers, the response was just 0.03 millimeters. That is nearly 5 times the fear response in babies with no reason to fear anything. Hull concluded that the fear of spiders appears to be deeply embedded in our evolutionary heritage, present from birth, not built from experience, a factory setting in the human nervous system. And the Columbia research confirmed something else equally remarkable about how the brain handles spiders. The human brain appears to have a preloaded spider template it constantly and subconsciously scans for. In their experiment, 252 volunteers viewed screens filled with abstract shapes and various images. The images included distorted spider shapes, hypodermic needles, and ordinary houseflies. Participants detected the spider images faster and more reliably than any other image in the entire set. Even a broken, distorted spider shape beat out a clear image of a needle. Your brain is running a spider search in the background, right now, as you watch this. You just never notice it running until it finds something. Now here's the layer that makes the reaction feel so completely out of your control. Fear and disgust are actually 2 separate systems running in the brain for 2 different purposes. Fear says, Get away from the physical threat before it can harm you. Disgust evolves separately to avoid contamination, decay, and hidden sources of disease. A 2021 study published in Scientific Reports tested emotional responses to a range of creatures. Spiders and scorpions triggered the highest combined levels of both fear and disgust simultaneously. Higher than snakes, higher than rats, higher than anything else the researchers tested. When both systems fire at the same time, the result is a reaction that overwhelms rational thought. Two ancient survival programs running simultaneously, both sending the same signal. Get away from that, right now. Now here's where everything shifts. You are sitting in your home right now, not on a savanna in the dark. There are no predators outside your door. There is no world where a spider bite ends your life before morning. The threat that built this reflex is gone, but the reflex is still here. Still running on hardware that has not been updated in 100,000 years. That spider in the corner of your bathroom is not hunting you. It is eating the mosquitoes and flies that would otherwise land on you while you sleep. It is, in a very real sense, doing you a favor every single night. But your amygdala does not know any of that. It knows what it was built to know on the savanna, and it is doing its job with absolute precision. So the next time a coin-sized spider sends you scrambling out of a room, understand what is happening. You are not being irrational, and you are not weak or broken. You are running ancient code that kept your ancestors alive long enough to have children. Every single person in your family line, going back further than recorded history, survived. Not all of them were brave, and not all of them were the strongest, but all of them were alert enough to react to the right threat at the right moment. That reflex is part of what brought you here. Your spider fear is not a phobia. It is a feature. One that served your species so well it has never once been removed. The spider on the wall is not your enemy. But the part of you that noticed it before your eyes even fully focused, that part kept your bloodline unbroken across 100,000 years of darkness. That is not something to be ashamed of. That is something to find genuinely remarkable.